I'd like to apologise if you can hear tapping in the background, as it is raining here in England, which is fantastic. Always, when you want quiet recording, you can't have it. Ain't life grand? Anyway, this is Why Winter Wrap Up by Amethyst Dawn. The purple unicorn sat on the plush royal cushion, unmoving, as she had observed her former teacher stirring their tea. After a few minutes of awkward silence, she began to grow impatient. "Well?" she asked, shifting her brow curiously. She knew Celestia could tell she wasn't being intentionally hostile, but she wanted a simple answer to what seemed to be a simple question. But from a look on her wise mentor's face, she knew she was in for something much more complex. "Let me ask you a question," the princess finally said, taking a leisurely sip of her tea. "Do you enjoy winter wrap-up?" Twilight froze and looked into Celestia's kind gaze. Was she serious? What the hey? "Of course I do, princess," she sighed. "But that doesn't answer my question. Why don't you help? Why do you let your subjects do all the work for you?" Twilight was taken aback when Celestia only managed to giggle and titter in response, a gentle, rolling laughter devoid of any sinister motives. After a few calming breaths, she spoke again in a knowing tone. "Tell me, Twilight Sparkle, what do you do in your free time?" Twilight's mouth hung open. The hey was she talking about? I read," she offered, not quite certain the princess wasn't changing the subject. "What about Pinkie Pie? What does she like to do outside of work?" "She likes to make new friends and check in with her old ones to see if they still need to smile," Twilight stated. She was unsure where this was going, but she had a gut feeling she'd feel like an absolute idiot once it was explained to her. "What of the seamstress? Does she not continue her work, even when it is not required of her?" Twilight paused. "Well, yeah, but she enjoys doing it. It's her passion, after all." "Do you not see, then?" Celestia asked tenderly. "See what?" Twilight asked in frustration, tapping the ground with a curious hoof. Celestia sighed, looked out of the window, and took another polite sip of her tea. "I can control whether the weather is hot or cold, depending on how I set the sun's position," she said slowly. "But if I do everything I could do myself, what would My Little Ponies do then?" She looked her former student in the eye softly. "Ponies like to keep busy, so they form hobbies to do when they aren't working. It's in our nature. And that is why the hobbies are interesting. They are something interesting outside of our work. If they are a constant, they would soon be boring and uninteresting. And my subjects enjoy winter wrap-up, along with a lot of other events, like the run of the leaves, or the summer sun celebration. All of these could, and would, occur naturally without your work. But I give the job to you, and what do? You skip along the paths and sing town-wide songs about the very things you're doing." She paused for a moment and thought deeply. "Remember when you wrote to me about the Apple family's reunion? How they all sang and danced while doing their work, and how they are all willing to join in?" Twilight nodded. "Yes. It's like that, Twilight," Celestia sighed. "But princess..." "Please, just Celestia now," she interjected. "Celestia," Twilight said unsurely. "Haven't you noticed what a hassle it is to organise all of these ponies? To synchronise every job so that they click together perfectly? And how much of a bother is it to redo when they all have one assignment and it doesn't click?" Celestia looked sternly, yet softly, at her old pupil. "Tell me, when a single stitch is out of place on one of Rarity's dresses, does she give it to Fluttershy to fix, or does she start over and make sure it fits perfectly?" Twilight was beginning to understand. "She restarts the stitch?" Celestia nodded. "Yes. And how does she react when she finally finishes their project, and after sometimes months and months of hard work?" "She gusses over it like it was the best thing ever," she chuckled. "Exactly, Twilight." Celestia grinned. The more work you put into a project, the more pleasure you experience when it turns out perfect. Do you understand now, Twilight? I do, Twilight sighed, rubbing her forehead just beneath her horn with a hoof. But it just seems manipulative, for lack of a better word, she said apologetically. The princess only chuckled warmly. Alas, that comes with being part of a ruling nation. A good part of being a ruler is knowing when to do the work yourself and when to let your subjects do it. No matter how manipulative it may seem to some. Do you understand that? Yes, the Lavender Alicorn nodded. Thank you, Princess... Celestia. Anytime, my faithful equal, Celestia said, hardly trying to contain her pride. I will always be here to answer a question, whether for you or your friends. She watched as her old student left through the large doors and beamed when she spread her wings and flew off. I wonder if Luna would consider taking on a student of her own, she thought aloud. It is quite rewarding. Twilight landed on the balcony of her new castle and stood. She let the breeze blow soothingly across her feathers while she considered her mentor's advice and her last words. My faithful equal. The more she thought on it, the more she realised that she was indeed now an equal with the other three princesses, and her former mentor considered her as a good teacher now. She had just folded her wings when she heard a timid voice behind her. Twilight? She turned to see Starlight Glimmer opening the door and peering shyly at her. Yes, Starlight? The pink unicorn shuffled her weight uncomfortably from side to side, avoiding eye contact. Well, she sighed. I was just wondering, why'd you let poor Spike do a lot of the work for you? I know he seems to enjoy it, but why? Twilight smiled warmly, walked up to Starlight and set a hoof on her shoulder. Tell me, Starlight, she said, what do you do in your free time?